Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. This is London News on YouTube. A little bit of information. We're now on Rumble. So you go to Rumble, you type in London, as you can see above. You don't have to put the news in, just London, and you will find us there as well. The reason we're on there is because we can do and say a lot more than we can here on this channel, which I love dearly, but we have to stand by their rules and regulations, which is it's their platform, so I'm quite happy to do that. So never give this channel up. We'll just move on. So go to Rumble and you'll find us on there as well. I'll be able to say some naughty things without getting chucked off, I hope. Anyway, we have a bit of progress. Now, I'm going to talk about what our children are missing out on. Our children are missing out on an awful lot of things. When I say my children, I'm talking really about my grandchildren, which I have 25. And quite a number of, I think it's 5, maybe 6 or 7 great grandchildren. So I can make those claims. But these children have missed out on an enormous amount of things. Remember in the 50s and the 60s, life was much easier. And what these criminal politicians, I mean, they're pathetic what they've done, you know. God's law, which is common law, common to all. They have, the politicians that is, have ruined and destroyed every man and every woman's life. And how have they done that? Let's go back to when a poor family didn't have enough money to buy. Chicken was scarce in those days. It wasn't like the chicken farms now, which probably better off without them. But anyway, people went out and snared a rabbit or shot a rabbit, and they had for the weekend, and they had roast rabbit or rabbit stew. It was free. It was a free man's food. It was there for everybody to have. You wouldn't starve. And then there was blackberries everywhere. And what did they call them? A noxious weed, and they removed them. But families went out with their children and they picked the blackberries and made jam. So that our food given to us by God grows on trees. It still does. But they have poisoned our rivers and poisoned our food, these criminal politicians. And then they come way, way back and they brought out the Lima Agreement when they signed and gave all the jobs and the machinery off to a third world country at the time, which is not a third world country now, to China and other countries as well. Now, I've been to China and I actually loved the place, so I'm not going to knock China. Good on them. They took advantage of our stupidity. And now these criminal politicians are complaining about it. Why do I call them criminal politicians? Because, especially here in Australia, they're quite well aware that Queen Elizabeth II, as in 1-1, was removed unlawfully. They turned this place into a republic unlawfully without a referendum. They changed the flags without a referendum. And when the poor old Queen dies, which I hope she lives for another 20 years, she's a lovely little old lady. Like her or not, it's entirely up to you. But this place will become a republic overnight because they say, oh, well, now, you know, they'll bring in some BS just to keep it going. But it's our enemies, apart from the media, is our politicians. And without the crooked media, politicians could never survive. The politicians used a pandemic, a BS pandemic, to shut the world down. To get rid of Donald Trump, they went to this extent, which has destroyed our lives, destroyed our children's lives, and destroyed businesses. Melbourne, the most livable city in the world, is no longer a livable city. It's run by criminal politicians. Now, this politician, Daniel Andrews, he's the chief executive officer of the state government. He's been indicted and convicted by a jury of his peers. The paperwork's on his way to The Hague. And Brett Sutton, the chief health officer, I mean, really chief health officer. When we look at the chief health adjectives, you know, what is he? The color, it's the color of law. It's an illusion. Was he part of an Indian tribe in America? He's the chief. I mean, what a load of old rubbish. And the document he put together, or someone did it for him, it was written in relation to grammar, it was written by a 5-year-old. And then we have fools who are institutionalized in their own stupidity, brainwashed, hypnotized. We have to make a stand against the criminal activity of the media and the criminal activity of politicians and the people enforcing unlawful laws. We have to put a stop. How do we do it? We get together as men and women have a gathering with a complaint against a particular company, because they're all companies, councils, local government, whatever you want to call them. There's no such thing as local government in Australia. It's a fiction. And take the CEOs of these corporations to task individually. Example, as you can see, I'm a returned soldier. I don't know whether you can see the badge here from the RSL. It's pretty hard to see, all right? I went into the RSL here in Frankston and I paid my fees for the year as a returned soldier. And I asked to go to the loo. And I had to show medical ID that I had a vaccine, which is nobody's business between me, God, and a doctor, right? But the manager came out and says, no, you can't go in to go to the loo because you have to show your vaccination passports. Well, I mean, how criminal is that? How many laws have they broken? They've broken lots of laws. But anyway, the good news is they're going to be, these RSL will be going before a grand jury by the end of this month, or a week or so into it. We just have to organize it. A grand jury then will make a decision whether they have a case to answer or not. This very morning, as the sheriff for the Common Law Court International here in Melbourne, I delivered an invitation, a summons to mediation in relation to a very large hospital that sacked a number of staff for not being vaccinated. Now, this is probably on Rumble. It may not be on YouTube. And that lady, who's the CEO, will come to mediation next month. And if she doesn't turn up, then she'll get a further summons to say, come before a jury of your peers. The jury then will decide the outcome and the cost of her continuing the circle of criminality. Now, remember the Nuremberg trials, which were fast to a certain degree because a lot of them got out pretty soon afterwards, but the Nuremberg trials are still going today. Like Hitler's henchmen all said, we were just taking orders. Well, so is the CEO of that hospital. Just continue the process. They're just as guilty as anybody else. Get their name, get them on camera, and get them into a court. We have an office already set up now, which will be running, I hope, very shortly by the end of this month. And we have a lot of volunteer staff. And just keep, as I say, watch this space. We've allowed these criminal politicians to do whatever they like. They have run the world into the ground. It all goes back to old Bush, young Bush. They started this ball rolling, and wherever you find the Democrats and wherever you find Labour Party, they're all birds of a feather. Their whole intention is to destroy your life, control you, make you obey, and own everything you own. Now, it's amazing how people think that they own their homes. Well, there's a few clips on my YouTube channel. It's not up on Rumble, but I'll tell you what, I'll put it up actually now to remind you, it will be on Rumble, about what's happened. When they removed Queen Elizabeth II as in 1-1, there is a reason for 1-1, the second has another meaning. Habeas corpus went with it. Now, habeas corpus is not in Scotland. If you live in Scotland, you never had a habeas corpus. Here in Australia, and of course, every part of the civilized world have a habeas corpus, which means if you're arrested, you produce a document to say, produce the body, or take him in. If it's not in court within, I think it's 2 hours, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't read this up a script, you have to produce the body, give the body up, or take them to court and let a court make a decision. Fairly simple. I used to I thought it was a simple fee lease, but it's fairly simple. That was granted by the Queen, if you like, or in that circumstances. When you own a property, which you never do here in Australia, and I don't think England has too many freeholds. Ireland does, the USA have freeholds. In Australia, particularly, there's very few. And I think there are a couple, but I'm not too sure. You have a fee lease simple, which allows you to buy, sell, will, carry on that property forever. And under common law, it says you can build anything on there so long as it doesn't interfere with the enjoyment of your neighbors, and that's common law. Now, when the Queen went, so did that fee lease simple, which now the council miraculously have claimed ownership of your property. What can you do about it? bugger all. Just pay your rates. And if you don't pay your rates, you're going to lose your property. And yet they don't have to tell you, because you'll be reading it in the newspaper. Like, I'll put a clip of this up. The old chap, he looks up, his house is for sale. 82 years old. They've done a deal with him with help of the neighbors. He had to pay out of his pension every fortnight to pay off his rates, because his wife died a year or two before. And of course, she was paying everything, and he come undone. Now, if you think that's feasible and that's okay and acceptable, well, then you are a person. But as a man, that is criminal. It's against God's law. Your given rights have been removed. Now, police forces, there's no such thing, police service. Every man who joined and every woman who joins the police force, and did in the old days, joined up with one intention, and that was to catch criminals on the hop. Now, when we say on the hop, you got a call of someone who's breaking into some place. You couldn't wait to get there. And the first time that happened to me, I don't care now. I'm old enough to admit that we left the keys in the van. This was in the UK way back in the 60s, in 1960, 66 or 67. And myself and my partner, we jumped over this little fence and grabbed this guy inside. And we were heroes, but his mate went out and stole the van. There was no walkie-talkies in those days, so we had to phone up and get help. We found the van later on. It wasn't damaged. The guy, in those days, when you caught someone breaking and entering, like, you didn't beat him up and wrestle him to the floor. They said, "You got me, Gav." And sometimes we took him back to the station, had a cup of tea, and they dubbed in all their neighbors, right? But I mean, that's how it was. But now, of course, things have changed. But sadly, our police forces are private corporations, and I'm sure a lot of them don't like that, and they'd love to go back to normal. And if there's any police watching that now, you're quite able to do that by going down to Parliament House here in Melbourne and arresting Daniel Andrews and the rest of the criminals, which is well publicized now, even on the public news, if you like, which or the BS news or the fake news, or whatever you want to call it. It's come up there as well that they committed an enormous amount of criminal activity going on in that organization, the Labour Party. God knows the other crowd is probably just as bad. But anyway, go and arrest them. You'll be heroes with the people. And we most certainly would love you. We'll be talking about you on Rumble and YouTube and everything for the rest of your life. Go and do it. But the people, you can make a stand by gathering together under common law and bringing these people who offend you, who commit crimes against you, against the people of Australia or Ireland, get together and do something about it. Otherwise, it's going to continue and it's going to get worse. We've sat on our butts and we've allowed this country and other countries in Ireland to go down the tubes. England pulled out of the EU. They've made a start, and now they're going back to their old laws, I hope. But we have to do something about it again. Remember, I keep saying, get out of the fictional system. Stop calling yourself a person. How do you do that? You get yourself an identification. When you're pulled over by a member of the police force or somebody asks you for identification, you produce your driving license, your birth certificate, your Medicare card or something. It's their system. You're saying, here you are, I am a person. Now, you produce your own common law ID or your own personal ID, which says, my name is, given names, John Michael, a family name, Brown or Black, Curly, wherever it is, in brackets, and you are the principal or the beneficiary for that estate, and that removes you from the fiction. After that, if you're asked for a driving license, be polite. You don't know who's upset, the policeman or policewoman. If you're dealing with police officers, that's a little bit different because you know they're corporations, but be polite, because if you don't answer the question, it's a contract. If you raise your voice and become obnoxious, it's a contract. And what you're trying to do is avoid contracting. So be polite. You never know what this man or this woman or this officer has gone through earlier on. It could be he's having a bad day. So why upset him anymore? Just be polite. Just produce your identification. Say, right now, I am a man or I am a woman, and I don't wish to contract. And he insists on your driving license. You produce it and say, now remember, and smile and be polite. I'm not contracting. A good, decent policeman or policewoman will accept that, and I know some of them will, and they'll let you go because they'll give you a caution, which every constable has the right to do. unless there are other the officers. If they're officers, they're out there to make money because they don't want to get the wooden spoon, as we say here in Australia. They end up getting crappy cars and they don't get the good Q cars and stuff like that. But anyway, I think that still exists. But anyway, it's a brownie point system. So be polite, get yourself an ID. You get it, I'll put the address up. It's lundovnews@gmail.com and I'll send you out what it's all about. You don't send money anywhere. I'll send you out all the information and you can get it. Anyway, don't forget, get yourself an ID, get out of the fictional system, stop being a person. And remember, especially here in Australia and most of the other countries, we do not have governments, we have corporations. Lund of News here on Rumble. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, spread the word. And if you want other videos, they're on YouTube and just type in Lund of. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye for now. Got one, that's okay. If you have a family crest, as the family name goes in there in brackets, which means it's actually on the document, but it's not part of the document because that's the deceased estated law. If you have an emblem, send it in and I put it up here, one place or the other, right? Make room for it. Live birth event. All that means live birth event. The date of birth, DOB, so the lay man or woman understands what DOLEB means. It's just date of birth, right?